Imagine you had a treatment that was helping you feel better, sleeping better, thinking more clearly, keeping your weight in check, protecting your bones and your heart, and then one morning you wake up, turn on the news, and the headlines are screaming that the treatment is going to give you cancer. That's what happened to millions of women on July 9th, 2002. The Women's Health Initiative, a massive federally funded study, announced that hormone replacement therapy increased the risk of breast cancer and heart attacks. Within days, women were calling their doctors. Prescriptions were canceled, doctors stopped writing new ones, and just like that, the treatment that had been helping those women feel human again was gone. That happened over 20 years ago, and the fallout is still happening today. I took an 18-month fellowship around 2016 specifically because I was watching women in my own practice suffering that was preventable, and their own doctors were too scared of the Women's Health Initiative study headlines to help them. So I went and I learned everything I could about what that study actually said. And what I found was this: the findings were not wrong, but the way they were interpreted, the way they were communicated to the public and to doctors and to women who just wanted to feel better was deeply and consequentially wrong. So today, we're going to unpack it. What was the WHI actually studying? What did they actually find? What did it not find that the headlines claimed it did? And what critical piece of data from that same study was almost entirely ignored? I'm Dr. Greg Oliver. I'm a DO with fellowship training in hormone optimization, and I've been practicing medicine for 40 years and supervising medical weight loss since 2002. Let's start at the beginning, because this is where most people's understanding of this story breaks down. The Women's Health Initiative study was not a study designed to evaluate hormone therapy for women going through menopause. It was primarily a cardiovascular disease prevention study. The question they were really asking was, can we use hormone therapy to prevent heart disease in older postmenopausal women? So the study enrolled 161,000 women between the ages of 50 and 79. The average age of people in the study was 63, not 50, 63. Most of these women were 10 to 20 years past menopause, and the majority of them, over 70%, in the combination therapy group where they took both estrogen and a synthetic progestin type agent, had never taken hormone therapy before. Now, I'm going to come back to this and why it matters enormously in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the drugs they used. The study tested two different medication regimens. Women who still had a uterus were given a drug called Prempro. That's a combination of Premarin, an estrogen, and Provera. Premarin is a conjugated equine estrogen from the urine of pregnant horses. Provera is medroxyprogesterone acetate, a synthetic progesterone. These were the dominant HRT drugs on the market at the time. Women who had already had a hysterectomy, meaning they had no uterus, were given Premarin or estrogens alone. We knew and know that estrogen by itself in women with a uterus can cause an overgrowth of the uterine lining and can be a cause of uterine or endometrial cancer. This risk is eliminated with the use of progesterone. Women without a uterus did not need progesterone for this protection. So this is a critical distinction. We had two different groups, two different drug regimens, two very different outcomes. But when the results were announced to the public and most of the medical community, they treated it as only one story. The headline numbers that came out of July 2002 were terrifying. A 26% increase in breast cancer, 26% increase in heart attacks, a 41% increase in stroke. Those numbers spread through the newspapers, TV news, women's magazines within hours. And doctors started calling patients and telling them, stop your hormone replacement therapy immediately. But here's what those percentages actually meant in absolute terms. And this is the number they almost never showed to anyone. In the combination therapy group, Premarin plus Provera, the breast cancer finding translated into approximately 8 additional cases of breast cancer per 10,000 women per year, compared to the placebo group, 8 additional cases per 10,000 women per year. To put that in perspective, later analysis showed the absolute increased risk from the combination hormone replacement therapy was actually smaller than the associated risk with drinking 2 glasses of wine a night or being significantly overweight. Those comparisons rarely made the evening news, which was terrifying. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying there was no signal here. There was an increased risk in the combination therapy group. The data was real. The problem was not the data. The problem was what happened next. The study was designed to be halted early if a pre-specified boundary for harm was crossed. And on May 31, 2002, the Data Safety and Monitoring Board stopped the combination therapy arm of the trial because the breast cancer finding hit that threshold after 5.6 years of follow-up out of an 8-year trial. And they announced it to the world as if the verdict on all hormone therapy for all women was in. It wasn't. Here is the part of the Women's Health Initiative study that got almost no attention in 2002, and that most women and many physicians still don't know about. The second group of the study, the women who had already had a hysterectomy, who were just taking the Premarin or the estrogens alone with no Provera, no synthetic progestin, those women showed a reduction in breast cancer incidence compared to the placebo group. Not an increase, a reduction. When extended follow-up data was published later in 2011, after nearly 11 years of follow-up, that breast cancer reduction in the estrogen group alone became statistically significant. And when the full 20-year follow-up data was published, the finding held. Women who had taken estrogen alone had significantly lower rates of breast cancer and incidence and lower breast cancer mortality compared to the placebo group. Let me say that again. 20 years of data from the Women's Health Initiative shows that estrogen alone without synthetic progestin was associated with a 23 to 37% reduction in breast cancer risk. That study is the same study that scared an entire generation off of hormone therapy. The difference? The synthetic progestin, Provera, medroxyprogesterone acetate. That appears to be where the breast cancer signal was coming from, not the estrogen. Estrogen does not cause breast cancer. This distinction matters enormously for how we think about hormone therapy today, because the modern approach to hormone replacement therapy, the one I practice, does not use synthetic progestins. We use very different hormones that are bioidentical to female human hormones. And we'll talk about that in detail in video 3 of this 4-part series of female hormone replacement. Now let's go back to something I mentioned earlier. The average age of the Women's Health Initiative participants was 63. Most were a decade or more past menopause, and yet the results of the study were applied wholesale to women who were 50, 51, 52, just entering menopause and asking their doctors about hormone therapy. Well, that's like running a study on the cardiovascular effects of starting an exercise program in 75-year-old sedentary adults and then concluding that exercise is dangerous for everyone, including the 45-year-old who just started jogging. The biology is completely different. Here's what the science now tells us. There appears to be what researchers call a window of opportunity or a timing hypothesis. If a woman starts hormone therapy within 10 years of the menopause onset or before age 60, the cardiovascular risks look very different and more favorable than if you start it in a woman who is already 63 and potentially has pre-existing cardiovascular disease. Giving estrogen to a woman with already hardened arteries is not the same as giving estrogen to a woman whose arteries are still healthy. The biology, the response, the risk, it's just not the same. This is not a fringe theory. It's reflected in the most current guidelines from the North American Menopause Society, the Endocrine Society, and the international menopause organizations around the world. Women who are symptomatic, under 60, and within 10 years of menopause onset, and who have no specific contraindications like current heart disease, are generally considered very appropriate candidates for hormone therapy. The Women's Health Initiative study didn't talk about those women. It studied older women with a different health profile, and the conclusions that were drawn and broadcast went far beyond what the data actually supported. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you are a woman in perimenopause or postmenopause right now, it means that the reflexive blanket fear of hormone therapy that has dominated medicine for the past 20 plus years is not justified by the data. It means that the conversation you had with your doctor, where they told you that hormone therapy was too dangerous based on a deeply flawed application of the Women's Health Initiative's results, and it means you deserve a more honest conversation about your options now. Now, and I want to be careful here, this does not mean that hormone therapy is right for every single woman. There are genuine reasons not to use them in some women. There are individual risk factors that matter. Monitoring of them matters while on medication. The type of hormone used matter. The delivery method matters. Timing matters. Medicine is not a one-size-fits-all. The problem with the Women's Health Initiative fallout wasn't that it overstated the risk. The problem is that it eliminated the clinical conversation altogether. Women stopped being evaluated as individuals. They were just told, no hormones, and they suffered. I've sat across from women in my office who've been struggling for years with things like hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, weight gain, mood changes, loss of libido, joint pain, and who were told that they just had to live with it. Women who came to me as a last resort because every other doctor told them hormone therapy was off the table. This includes my own wife. That is not acceptable medicine, and that's why I'm doing this series. In video 2 of this series on female hormone therapy, we're going to dig in and go a little bit deeper. We'll look at the design critiques of the Women's Health Initiative, the specific reasons researchers have argued the study was fatally flawed, and we'll cover the reanalysis data and the timing hypothesis in much more detail. In video 3, I'll get into the actual hormones we use today, estradiol, micronized progesterone, and testosterone in women, and why those hormones are a fundamentally different choice than what the WHA study tested. And in video 4 of this series, I'll walk you through what a proper hormone optimization evaluation actually looks like in my practice, what we test, what we monitor, and how we make sure that every woman we treat is treated as an individual. If you're watching this and thinking, I need to have a different conversation about my hormones, and if your doctor still refuses that, get another opinion. If this video was useful, please like it and subscribe, and share it with a woman in your life who's been told there's nothing they can do about their menopause symptoms, because there is. I'm Dr. Greg Oliver. I'll see you in video 2 of female hormone replacement therapy. So long for now.